And of course, I'm always pinged. Oh, live alerts. Yes, live alerts. Wow, it also pings the big community. Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Wait, this isn't Plumbus's Counter-Strike alert.
No.
Yeah, can we have it like not ping everybody? Because that's really annoying, not gonna lie.
Or at least get it to not restart its screen.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem. I can change that.
Because I don't know
Hi,
if it's like
Nick.
a Discord bug or something, but I have it like completely turned off, no ad alerts or anything, and it still pings me. It's like, what the hell?
We actually just turned that on just for you.
Yeah,
I'm sure you did.
can. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, guys, welcome to our June meeting. We try to have one of these every month now so that we can kind of align and be in sync with each other around objectives, goals, and future plans. And so that everybody also has a place where they can voice concerns, throw out ideas, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's kind of what these are. And I do record them onto our TLP YouTube channel. So if we come over here, let's see, it should be live. There it is. Oh yeah. So you'll be able to see that there as well. Okay. And then let me just make sure that I get everybody. Actually, it starts now. My bad. Okay. Okay. All right. And I do want everybody to make sure that you can see my screen, so that I can, have my talking points and everything, and you guys can kind of follow along. So number one is we are, I would say we are barely a 3 out of 8 guild. And what I'm noticing is that even in recruitment, so like when I come up here, I see a lot of guilds at 3 of 8. A lot of guilds. And, it seems to be a recurring theme, I guess. The fourth boss is a bit of a bear. There's a lot of 3 of 8s. Some of them are a little further, yeah. But most of them are 3 of 8s, or even some that are 4 of 8. But it seems like people are kind of stuck in the first 4. It's kind of what I'm looking. At least the more casual guilds. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to recruit new people. And one of the things that I want to make sure that we impress upon everybody is the seriousness in which we want to take the Olympian team. We want to be able to get through content, and we want to be able to get some of the achievements of the later bosses. I would be very happy to get 5 of 8 by the end of this season. I do believe the end of this season is probably going to be late August, if not early September. So we still got some time to do that. And, to be honest with you, some of the folks that are currently on the Olympians team are underperforming. And they're either some of the things that we noticed based on a more generalized analysis. I managed to go to Whitefest and get the Patreon subscription for it, which kind of leads us to look at overall, things. And we do notice, a bit of recurring people having the same kind of problems, or getting stuck in the same kind of things, or dying to the same kind of mechanics. And I don't know how much of that is just lack of attention or just lack of knowledge of the encounter, which that could be as well, or just, not being able to move as fast as others, right? Right, like myself. I'll throw myself out there, right? Yeah, like it's just overwhelming. It's an overwhelming amount of mechanics coming at you, and I think that in some instances, when I can see that pretty clearly, it is incumbent upon us to say, hey, do you guys want to maybe take a step back and reassess where you want to be? If it, because the truth of the matter is that to do mythic level content, which is the hardest content in the game, and mind you, it has been nerfed since its first release. It always is. It's been nerfed a few times now, right? So, still, in order to get through this content, the bottom line is there has to be a certain level of commitment, and there has to be a certain level of attention. There has to be a certain level of preparedness, and we definitely understand there are three types of learning for all human beings. There's the visual, the written, the tactile, right? So we completely understand that we have to provide those three things. So I definitely feel like having a lot of pulls and kind of pulling at things is good to get the reps in so that you can build that muscle memory. But at some point, we got to down this boss. And the problem that we ran into with Rick Reverb was really, having a bit more of a seriousness, right, that we needed to have. I'm gonna exit out of this game because all of a sudden the graphics in my game went to shit. So I want to be able to kind of have an open forum for that, because I do want to go ahead and take the Prophets team into Mythic, and we will dip a toe here and there in the Mythic tier with the Prophets, but we're not going to be as serious. We're going to be more relaxed, more chill, kind of like how we were in season 1. Okay? In season 1, I think that we were a heroic team that was dabbling in Mythic, and I thoroughly believe that is still the case for our Prophets team. However, for our Olympians team, we need to get a little bit more serious around specifically attendance, around, situational awareness, around, improving mechanics, defensiveness, all of that good stuff, utilizing more potions, utilizing this, utilizing that. I think that we have to get more serious about that with the Olympian team. And to do that, we need to have that needs to be okay with all of you, right? Like everybody in the team needs to go, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go for those achievements, because I do believe it's going to take us a year or more and several seasons, maybe even several expansions, for us to become a CE guild. Okay? Right now we're a Mythic guild. We're not CE. But that is where a lot of the folks that are part of this team want to go. Okay? So I'm in the middle here, right? Because, I definitely want to keep the vibe of our guild and our community that we've built here and the friends that we have here. I don't want that to change at all. I think that is what makes us unique. It is what makes us great, and it's what makes us TLP. And when I talk about TLP as a whole, I really do talk about this motto: one family, many worlds. It is on every single one of our chapters. It's how we have operated for many, many years now. And it is something that it's very near and dear to the core of who we are as an organization. And so I really want to make sure that that stays intact, but that we can also accomplish the goals that so many of the folks in the Olympian team wants to achieve. Does that make sense? So, given that, I want you guys to have conversations with us, specifically those of you in the Olympians team, to have conversations with us about, if that is something that suits your game style and your play style. Are you, able to really be prepared, repaired, and geared up, and you've studied the mechanics and you know what you're doing and you've watched the videos and do all the stuff that I see a lot of us do, right? A lot of us do commit to doing that. I commit to doing that. I'm not even on that team because I know that I may at some point be needed to fill a spot. So even if you are a bench for the Olympians, it is something you should take heart to as well, right? Be on time, be prepared, be ready. And, if that's something that you want to achieve, it's something you want to get to, if it's a goal for you, great. That is where the Olympians wants to go as a whole. And if it's not, you always have a place rating with us in Profits. And Profits is going to be a AOTC team that's going to then dabble in Mythic Raid content for the fuck of it, for the fun of it. Not trying to get CE, but just to have a good time with my buddies. That's what Profits is going to really focus on in the coming, especially in the coming season, right? Like that's going to be our goal, is getting better, improving little by little. We're not expecting our Profits team to be exceptional at anything, right? But we are expecting us to be capable, right? That's we have 3 rating tiers. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced. And also within that, it's not really a skill thing, it's a time commitment thing as well. It's a combination of those 2 things, right? So if you think about the 3 tiers, it's also low commitment, medium commitment, high commitment, right? So if you think about that, if you think of it in that way, I think it's going to be something that, you kind of have to decide for yourselves. And, to be fair, I think that, in some instances, some folks enjoy, they really like playing with the people that we play with, right? And they really enjoy the time there. And they want to be able to do that, and they want to be able, et cetera, et cetera. So I think some of you folks really kind of fit into that. And then some of you, it's just because, these are your friends and you enjoy spending time with your friends, and maybe you don't want to be as serious as it is required to get through that type of content. So now I'm going to kind of pass this over and say, Hakkasan and Koff, the 2 of you, how, what do you guys have to add in that regard?
I mean, I guess kind of just echoing it, right? Like it is like just going through the sprocket fight. It is, I mean, I would say that we have a bunch of polls on it, but not any of them I'd say are really actual attempts, just due to the fact of, or the nature of that boss being the weak aura boss that it is. So there are some improvements that can be made on that front in terms of, mechanics, and especially as we're doing dry runs, right? Like I think we'll probably do I'm hoping tonight's expectation is that we can do a few dry runs, get everyone in the zone of it, and then start, trying to actually prog it. Everyone should have the weak auras downloaded, and the audit check for it downloaded as well, so that way I can verify that we all have the weak auras, so that way we're not dealing with this for, I guess, a 3rd night in a row of someone saying that their weak auras are not working or anything like that. So I guess on that front, there we'll be able to know a little bit more on what some of the issues are in terms of if it is mechanics or if it is like I don't think at this point it's a knowledge thing. Like I think we've done it enough, even with the weak aura issues. I think it's really just getting used to it and us all being on the same, I guess, page, firing on all cylinders, so that we can see the fight fluidly, and then getting used to that. Right now, we're kind of like, some of us are used to it because our weak auras are working, but it doesn't really matter, because if someone else's weak aura is not working and they're like assigned for a bomb, then the raid doesn't get that far because we die and we can't all like get the fluidity that we need for that fight. So I think there'll be more to come on that, unless we just go in there and do something crazy tonight and kill it, which we might if everyone's firing on all cylinders. But I think that, yeah, the seriousness of it, but at this point in the fight, there really shouldn't be questions on it. We should all know what we're doing, um, in that regard. So that's kind of the seriousness that Danny is referring to, is being prepared for that type of stuff. We had a couple days where we were learning the intricacies of it, but now it's just executing. So it'll be, we'll take a little bit of time. I want to show you guys a replay in Warcraft logs of, what the grouping's supposed to look like, what the positioning's supposed to look like, so that way, again, speaking on that, different types of learning, seeing it from I've done this with a couple of you already, seeing the fight from a different perspective of like a bird's eye view, kind of opens up, you know, maybe a different view of it that you might not have had before. So we'll take about 10 minutes at the beginning of the raid to do that, and then throughout the raid, maybe like once or twice, we'll look at it, maybe a pull or two on that same view, and see kind of what's going on. I want to get people involved in that process in terms of communication, right? If you're struggling, if something's not making sense, why we're positioning the way we are, because it all has a reason, and there's a reasoning for why we're positioned the way we are. There's a reasoning for everything that we're doing in there. And so if it's not making sense to you, if you think that like, oh, I could stand over here, like I want to talk through that briefly with people so that they can understand the concept of the fight. Because I think that's a big thing that we're missing, right? In Mythic rating, it's a lot of adaptability. A lot of things like happen on the fly. And I think understanding the concept of the fight and why we're doing what we're doing is something that's been missing for us. And we saw that in Rick. Cauldron, I think, was just kind of like a brute force thing where we, but the more or the later fights in Mythic are more like adaptability. Like Styx is going to be the same way. Sprocket's this way now. Rick was that way. It's being able to understand what needs to be done in order to kill the boss. You can't just like be laser focused in on what you're doing, that you might have to adapt, right? So, especially with Sprocket and these bomb poppings. So, yeah, I mean, we're like Danny said, reach out to us and voice if you're having problems, if you at the end of it, as we're going through this, if it's not something that is for you, let us know. Like we can walk through it. If you need more help, we can walk through that as well. We just need to all be on the same page with what we're trying to accomplish with this team as we build it up. So,
Yep.
That's all I really got.
Okay. Okay. Any of our other officers?
I don't think I really have anything to add. This is all pretty well covered.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think one of the things that I want to, kind of make the point is that TLP is still TLP. This guild, this community, we have over 5,500 fucking people in it worldwide across multiple fucking chapters. Like, we're going to be who we're going to be. So that part of it is not changing at all. Like, we are friends. We make space for each other to have real life happen to us. We make space for, the families, the kids, the this, the that, all of that, still very much true. Still very much a part of it. I just think that the Olympians needs to take a turn, and the Olympians need to take a turn for a little bit more serious of a commitment for it. And if you come to me and you say, hey, I think I agree with you, Danny, and I think I want to take a spot in profits, that's great. What we can do, and it would be very helpful for us, is you stay with the Olympians until we can find someone to fill that spot, because it's very difficult to find folks to fill that spot that operate at that level. Obviously, it's all over the recruitment forums. So we could do something like that. Or if you say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling with that, or this mechanic or that mechanic, then, we can take the time to kind of walk you through that. What I was thinking is maybe kind of walk through something like this, where we have, and we can see, how other guilds are doing it in the replay right here, right? And you can kind of see how, how that operates, because I think it's kind of interesting to see someone else really position very well, to stack very well. This is a beautiful display. That's an art form there, right? And to really see that and see where that is in relation to what you're doing and that kind of stuff. I think it's important to go through that. And if we need to spend a little more time with you, there is no qualms from any of us if that is what you need. If you need more time to absorb, maybe you just need a little bit more time to get to a certain mechanic and absorb all the stuff that's going on in Mythic, that's fine. So we can do that as well, right? We can spend some time. What I'm thinking is maybe take some of you guys into like a heroic that's that's cleared, so that you can have the whole space, and we can kind of really kind of do what I like to call a dry run. For me, that's a dry run is getting to a place and utilizing the map. But, you can clearly see from what you're seeing here that the stacking here is imperative. That's the magnetized. You can tell, right? You can tell kind of where they're going and, all that kind of stuff. They move, they're very prescriptive in their movements, right? And I think that kind of stuff needs some help. And I think that we can make some changes at the tank space. We've talked about that, Cano.
Yep.
And I and Koff have talked a little bit about that. So we can make some changes in that regard. But you can see, like, the movement here is very choreographed. Yeah. And so we want to get to that space, and we want to be able to move forward with the Mythic team. We want to continue to progress in that team without having to, in my opinion, without having to have an Ellie moment. If that makes sense, right? Where we have to get, someone else to come in and kind of walk us through this. So I leave the door open, and then I'm just going to throw it out there for anybody that wants to comment. This channel is on push to talk, so you do have to activate your push to talk. Okay. So you have to get a key, set a key for that. But I'll open that up. Who here wants to go first and kind of lead the way of the discussions about this?
As usual, I have a bunch of things to say if anyone wants to hear them.
Oh, of course we do.
I mean, my only thing I was going to say is sit there is don't be afraid to, I talked to Danny and Koff for quite a while to try to fix some shit with my tanking, and I know some of you are aware I'm a little bit proud, so I mean, even I can do it, so don't be ashamed to feel like you got to sit there and try to get stuff to figure out how to tighten things down.
Yeah. Go ahead, Critty.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty valid. Like we were going through watching these replays, and I was watching where I was standing, and I was like, oh, I am standing in the wrong spot. Even though I'm doing most things right, here's the thing that I thought I was doing right and I was doing wrong. So it's true, we could all use some work, even people who think we're pretty good. And But the thing I really want to address here is, I think that I feel like what happened with the Olympians team over the past few weeks was we kind of had a pretty high turnover, and it's not really the same team as it was a month ago, right? As far as the roster goes, and I think that's a pretty big deal when you turn over a large portion of any team, because there's, first of all, you have the new people that have came in that may or may not be right up at the top of that skill level yet, but then you also have the synergy with how they work together in the group and with the other people, and you get to know kind of how people work and synergize with them. So one thing that I think that really sticks out to me, and this kind of stuck out to me in my last guild, last tier as well, is that I think there's something to be said for having certain bosses on farm before you go to the next boss. And this is only a thing that's happened since WoW started having this thing where you can, save your lockouts and stuff. Back in the day, you didn't get to save your lockout until you killed the Lich King and just beat your head off this boss. You had to clear the raid every week. And that made you a better team, and it made you all better players. And that kind of, you may think that doing Rick Reverb again until we have it on farm isn't going to help us learn Sprocket, but I would beg to differ wildly. I think that until we can really kill Cauldron and Rick with fair ease, I don't think we have any business playing with Sprocket, honestly. I don't think our team is up for it in that way because of the high amount of turnover and because of one Rick kill. I don't think we're there yet. And so in my personal opinion, I feel like it's kind of demoralizing in a way to the people on the team to beat their head off something that maybe isn't even really at their level yet, because a lot of the team just came on board. And I think maybe we should really try to focus on those first three bosses, getting them on farm. Like, I think we did kind of brute force Cauldron, and I think Rick was RNG. We RNG'd ourselves to that kill, really, in a lot of ways. And that was kind of before, and we Ellie'd ourselves to that kill, which, like, I personally like that kind of style. I was raised by a drill sergeant type of dad, and like, as long as people aren't being insulting when they're being demanding, I don't mind that kind of thing. But a lot of people, that's not theirs. They're not, going to handle that very well at all. So, I think that the calm, gentle style that Koff brings is great, but also I think that bouncing our head off of a boss with half of a new team and only having one Rick kill really under our belts is counterproductive. And that's my personal opinion, and mileage may vary, and people are welcome to disagree. But I kind of had this opinion with my last guild too, where we locked out Queen Ansarek for weeks on end, and it was like 300 pulls, and it was miserable. Okay, and that was just heroic Ansarek. And I think that the entirety of that guild could have used at least 5 or 6 more Silken Court kills and about 5 or 6 more Kaiveza kills, or 10 more, or whatever it took. So that's my 2 cents. Is I think that because of the high turnover that we've had, and because of the fact that we really have just kind of half-ass lucked our way through at least one boss, if not two, that we should be working more on getting those bosses on farm before we're bouncing our head off of what is probably arguably one of the hardest bosses this tier. I think, early on before Mythic got nerfed, I think a lot of the high-end guilds were saying, Styx was one of the hardest bosses this tier, and I think that still stands to be true as well. But I think this one particularly I think this is, before you get to Muggsy and Galley, and I think Muggsy, I think Galley is actually going to be easier than this boss right here, and the numbers kind of bear that out. If you look at the kill numbers on these bosses, and the pull numbers, the pull counts for like I was looking at this just earlier today for the Hall of Fame guilds. Hall of Fame guilds are pulling this boss more than almost any boss in this tier. So to bounce your head off the hardest boss in the tier when you've just barely killed one of the easier bosses in the tier, I think is counterproductive. And so I just would encourage the leadership to kind of think a little bit more about our approach to that team. And if it's already going to take us 6 months or a year to get to a CE team, you have to build that team. You can't recruit it, really. That's the honest truth. I've worked in a lot of different fields in some recruiting positions and management positions, and you can't recruit your way to a CE team. You have to build that team, and you're not going to build it by demoralizing people. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now. So I'm not opposed to trying it again tonight. And I'm not opposed to continuing to do whatever the leaders asked me to do, because that's what I committed to do. But that's my opinion.
Something I also thought, because that what Critty said brought to my mind, is because we've been doing the extensions and stuff, have we not actually lost some people with trying to build a team because we were not like killing what we could already kill?
As far as I know, there hasn't been anybody that's left as a result of the Prague state of the raid.
Okay.
Yeah, the only people that I've seen the turnover has been either
Cloud and his wife, right? I will say, Ryu, that was one of their complaints, was not being able to, farm the loot from the first few bosses or whatever. It was one of their complaints, but their bigger issue was outside of that.
Okay, I just thought we maybe had lost some because of that, and with Critty brought it, it came to my mind was all.
I agree 100% on the doing earlier bosses more together. Because cohesion and consistency is one of the biggest things with this. And getting things down to a science means that getting other things down and showing that we can do it is probably one of the most important things possible. It does slow down Prague, obviously, but once everything is together, like once the well-oiled machine is put together, then Prague is going to be much easier.
Well, yeah, and I'll add on kind of the reason why Prague was chosen to be a priority over that originally, which was the numbers thing that Danny was talking about earlier, right? There's a lot of guilds. I mean, hell, there's even some pugs that can pug 3 of 8. So it was mainly about trying to get ahead of that number to show, because in the recruitment conversations that I've had, some of them are, it sounds great, but I'm not really looking to make a lateral move. And, granted, getting one boss is not, I would say, getting Rick one time is a number that's just that gets people in the door. And then, because right now, the biggest thing that we've had is the 20-man roster. That's been kind of the thing that we're not trying to, basically, in our recruiting process, we're not trying to go in and say, can we recruit CE capable people right now and just replace everybody with CE capable people. That's not the intention of the recruiting. The recruiting is just to get people in that are interested in Mythic raiding.
And to put a pin in that is, we have always been down. Even before you started seeing like turnover, Critty, we have always been missing a few spots in this team. Period. From the beginning.
Yeah, which is how I got brought in, right? Because I signed up to be an AOTC raider. I had no interest in a CE team or a Mythic team. I was like, I'd be interested in the bench maybe, right? But now here I am on the team, and I don't mind that. I'm happy to be there as long as everybody thinks I belong there. That's fine. But I think also for recruitment, I understand that for recruitment, it's better if you have more kills, right? If you're a 4 of 8 or a 5 of 8. But again, if you're not trying to recruit a CE ready team, then you need to recruit people that are interested in Mythic raiding and are willing to put in the work to become Mythic raiders. Yes. Recruiting people to try to get further, to,
Yes.
killing bosses, to try to recruit more people, to kill more bosses is kind of an endless self-defeating loop. I really am believe that. And so
Yes.
I think that people who are interested in mythic raiding and who are willing to put in the work and the commitment are going to be way happier showing up and killing 3 bosses a week than they are killing 0 bosses a week. So that's I think that and then you build up to that 4 of 8, 5 of 8,
Yeah,
whatever. I don't think you can recruit it, and I kind of feel like I understand how in a recruitment conversation it's easy to, because like I said, I've been in some management positions in some pretty interesting businesses before. One of them being a brothel, but I think that if you look at how we're going to recruit, it's going to be right now a team that you're going to build into a CE team, and to get those kind of people that are interested. I think you have to be killing bosses and you have to be farming bosses. I don't think you can have one Rick Reverb kill or even 2 or 3. I think Rick Reverb has to be on farm because, like Koff just said, there are pugs killing 3 of 8, right? And so why would somebody join your guild if they could just go kill 3 of 8 in a pug? Well, the answer is because they want to build up a team with you. They want to be part of something that is growing, right, and is building and as a team. And that part of the fun of being on a prog team is becoming better together, right? So I totally understand and respect why, what the logic is for going to Sprocket and locking it out and beating your head off of it, but I don't necessarily think it's productive to continue doing it. Like if we go in there tonight and we can't get, some 50 or 40% pulls, then I don't think we have any business in there, and we should be back on Rick.
Yeah, and I mean, so just kind of, and this might just be like a semantic thing, but the raid hasn't been locked out except for the 1 week where I did that, and then that kind of backfired right when we were trying to fight the 20-man boss and bringing people in, and so the raid is never locked. We were just choosing to go to Sprocket first.
Right.
And so it's
So
like,
that's probably that's a me semantics issue.
Yeah,
It is.
okay.
It is.
But whether it's locked out or so the great thing is we're not.
The bottom line is
that
that the end result is the same. The bosses are not being killed. The loot is not being distributed, and there isn't a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. That's the bottom. That's the bottom line, right? So.
And there also may be people that just came onto the team that still may need those crests and those spots
crests,
and the gear and things like that. Yeah. And again, I feel like there's the difficulty. This tier is kind of wonky because it's not linear, right? And not that any other tier is perfectly linear, but generally the curve is a little bit more linear. This time it's really kind of like, oh wow, it's going to get really difficult at the 4th and 5th boss, and then it's going to go back down, and then it's going to go, it's kind of a little bit wonky. But I really, that's just my opinion. Yeah. That's based on, take it with a grain of salt, because I just came back to the game at the end of Dragonflight after being gone for a decade. And when I was a hardcore raider back in the day, that was before they even had mythic difficulty. So
is like the male version of me. But I understand that, and trust me, I do understand that. I also understand the hardship of trying to get people in the door. Let me tell you something. Half the time that we're out there recruiting, and most of that has been just me, I'm going to be frank, has been just me and Koff, okay? Going out there in the recruitment. And the problem is trying to attract someone who will come here. And yes, maybe they first came here because they want to down some bosses, but they come here and then they're in the mix of our guild and our community, and they fall in love with the people. And I can probably attest that everybody here at one point or another has had that happen to them. Where they've joined this guild, they're like, oh, this seems cool. It kind of aligns with my goals of what I want to do with my game, right? And then you come in here and you get into a raid group, and we're having fun, and we are just doing mythics with each other, and we're doing things with each other, and we are really active in that sense. And then you're like, oh, this is like you know, some of the other stuff becomes less important because you want to retain that atmosphere of friendship and camaraderie and fun and all that good stuff that TLP definitely offers, right? So there has to be a balance, though, when it comes to tackling high end content of how much you are willing to commit to, right? To get to those goals. And what I'm saying is because last season, and this is exclusive to us, Critty, right? Like you weren't here last season with us. I wish you would have. You probably have a better taste in your mouth about that instance. But when it came to last season, I would say that we were a heroic team who got AOTC, and then we tried our hand at Mythic, and a lot of those raiders, came with us, right? But what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to give a space for them because I care of them as people and as part of the guild, right? To say, I may not have what it takes to raid at that level, right? And because there is hands down a certain level that is required, a level of commitment, a level of situational awareness, a level of movement speed, all that good stuff. There is a certain level that is required to get past certain bosses in a mythic raid. That is just factual. There's no denying that. I think everybody here knows that. And I think that what you said about having the turnover is true. So what I'm proposing is, we take our team and we say, okay, guys, look at yourselves and look at the commitment that you have, the time that you have, what changes you have in your real life that are happening, et cetera, et cetera. Tell us where we can help you. Would you rather come back to the Profits team and be, a little more relaxed? It's a flex raid. Again, this is not a guild thing. It's a system thing, right? Because the heroic raid and the normal raid are flex raids. If you have an emergency and you have to go into the hospital ER, right? Like that doesn't matter to a flex raid because it just adjusts to the number of people you have present, right? The Mythic team is a totally different animal because of that 20-man roster. And so what I'm saying is more around the level to really think about the level of commitment and the level of time that you can devote to that endeavor, right? And it may not be for some of the folks who have been with us for a while, who were part of the heroic team in season 1, who, dabbled in season 1, the 3 of 8, or the 4 of 8 that we got. Some of us got 3 of 8, some of us got 2 of 8, some of us got 4 of 8, right? So we were dabbling in Mythic last season. Whereas this season, I want to make that there is a distinct difference between what we were doing before and what we want to do now. That's all I'm saying. And what I'm saying is I care more about the people, and I don't want to put them through something they may not like to do because they're, part of that team and maybe they like to raid with those folks and that kind of stuff. Real life comes at us fast, and real life can change in a heartbeat. And I think everybody here has experienced that at some point or another. So I want to make sure that I'm giving everybody the space to go, maybe I got to rethink this.
Well, I think that maybe the Mythic team, a part of what they might want to address regarding time, right, is I think that all of us need to be running our Mythics at a very minimum, at a 10, to unlock those Mythic vaults.
Correct.
And I don't know if everyone is doing that.
No.
And I don't think everyone is.
No, they're not.
I think that was, from my understanding, that was also part of the reason that, like, we're struggling now, right? Is that some people, like, I'm 680. Some people are still in their low 670s, I believe. And we're so past halfway through this season. We really need to be getting those Mythic vaults filled out.
Yep. So, like, if you look at this is where we're at, and some folks are a little lower. than others, right? Come over here and say average. Our average collective level is 6, 7, 8. For everybody that's in the Olympians, or that is a bench for the Olympians too. So, yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if personally, like, I don't mind going back and clearing bosses. I really don't. But I don't want to clear them over and over and over again to
Without
help
making
people.
progress. Yeah.
Yeah, to help people fill out their one slot that you should be doing anyways through your mythics.
I think it's a good point to bring up, like, the level of commitment you guys are wanting and expecting.
Yes.
I'm a newer raider, and I appreciate, you guys letting me come in. I am one of those bench slots, but I do have, the item level is 680. I've already surpassed the average, being a newer player. And I don't have my mechanics. I was lucky enough to pull Koff aside to help me with those.
Yeah.
But I just want to know what kind of commitments you guys want, so that way raid day, when we, are coming in at 8, what you want versus what we can bring is together and understanding.
I mean, I can speak to that. Koff can speak to that. I think at minimum, you just need to bring your stuff, man. You need to have watched your videos, however best you learn, whether that is watching something or reading something, or both, right? Have that in your pocket. If you have questions about mechanics, don't freaking click the ready check and say you're ready, right? Like that would be an expectation of me. Like, if you have questions and you're not sure about something, do not be afraid to speak up and go, I don't understand this. Because I would rather spend 5 more, 10 more minutes explaining it to you, because I guarantee you, if you have a question, I guarantee you somebody else has that same question in some way. And maybe they're not able to speak up, or they don't feel like they can speak up. I want a different atmosphere here. I want to be able to say, hey, you're in the wrong, you're staying in the wrong spot. And people go, oh, I didn't even notice. Because that half the time, that's what it is. You didn't even notice that you're in the wrong spot. So, like, what I expect is you have your buffs, you have your flasks, you have your potions. We provide some of that stuff for you, fine. But you should have all of that on you. You should have watched the videos. You should have read the details. Whatever you don't understand, you should ask. If you don't understand, click no. And don't click ready check, right? And ask the questions. And don't be afraid to be the person that asks the questions. I think we need to make that more of like the habit, and be open and honest. And then also, when you're in the raid, be present. Don't be, distracted and other things. And I know that can be really hard at times, specifically when you have young kids, or you have, wife, maybe. Mind you, I was just talking to Ziva for a bit, and his situation is quite dire. Well, you have a wife that's really like railing against you about your gaming. Those are all real life factors that are distracting. And I think that the Mythic team just requires you to be on time. If you're gonna miss something, to let us know ahead of time, so that we can pull from bench, and, be able to be present when you're there, coming back from breaks, et cetera, et cetera. Like, all that needs to happen. Koff?
And just adding to it with a little bit of a caveat in the sense of asking questions, right? The caveat to that is that it needs to be formatted in the sense of like, hey, I watched the video, I did this, and now like this doesn't make sense with what we're doing, right? Like I don't want to use the raid time explaining something if you haven't like done any prep work into the fight, right? Like that's the only thing. If you've watched the video and we are in a couple polls and you're like, hey, I don't get like I know we're supposed to be here. I don't get why. Like what's the okay, that makes perfect sense. Like you can explain the concept of the fight, because obviously watching a video, they're telling you like what's going on, but there might not be like the connection of like the why we're doing things might not be there. in some of the videos, or especially if you read something where it's like, hey, this mechanic, do this, and it's like, well, why? Like what? And then like, some people, as a result, some people will not do it because the why that's being called out isn't there. And so that makes perfect sense to ask that. But like, what I don't want is for someone to come in not doing any, not like prepping at all, and then asking, hey, what's going on, or all this stuff, because then it just slows the raid down. And if 19 other people have done that prep work, then I'm stopping the raid to answer the question that you should know based on some prep work. And then the second point to this is that we also, the first point should really address this, but if there's we have a strategy going into the fights, and that's going to be the strategy that we use until there's like something clearly not working with our group. We watch a video, we have a strategy based on the fights, and that's for, maybe that's for that specific group of players that, we're basing the strategy on. Whereas like, for example, in Sprocket, we're choosing to change our positioning a little bit to help our range people out that might not be able to get all the way over there to the far markers. So we do change strategies. It's not like we will literally go and beat our head into this one strategy until it works for us, because it might not just work for us. But that being said, in the raid, we can't all be suggesting strategies and suggesting things and throwing things out, because it is overload for some people, right? It is a lot if we're changing things on the fly. I know I got some feedback on like me changing the list for Sprocket all the time. Now, granted, I was trying to make it to where I wasn't getting someone with a weak or a problem getting called in the list so we could see further of the fight, but it's still, me doing that disrupts the flow of other people. And so it's a domino effect, right? So I took that and I made the list that I have now is static, and it's not changing, except for obviously if there's new people that flow in and out, but the positioning of people is not changing in the list. So that like we definitely need to ask questions. We all need to be on the same page, but we can't be like throwing strategies out and throwing stuff like and changing it frequently, and especially in the middle of a raid. Like if you have something that makes sense to you, or like you saw something somewhere else, just message me on the side. We'll talk about it. We'll, present it in an organized fashion. But calling it out in the middle of the raid, all like just strategy changes I'm talking about is overwhelming for some people. So that's the only thing I'd say on the caveat of like, questions and learning and stuff like that about fights.
Yeah. So do the
I
homework, and
appreciate
if
you
you have
taking the time.
questions after that, then that's and be precise with your questions, right?
I
Yeah,
think
I think
the one thing that you guys both failed to mention, and I'll just toss it out there, is in the situation that we're in with a weak aura specific boss, which I think Blizzard has designed specifically for weak auras. And I'm guilty of showing up the first day just with a shitload of problems because I've never ever used weak auras before. But to answer the question, having all the weak auras installed and having your gear updated in the wish list and all of those things are the prep work also that you need. It's like you have all the, you need to do the research and blah, 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 but you also need to like have all the things installed and ready to roll.
Correct.
Yeah. And, on that as well, if there's stuff that, that's not working for you, like add-on wise or even mechanic wise or whatnot, like I went in with, Nature the other day was needing some setup with his weak aura. So, I mean, it was a journey getting in there, but me and him went in there and I just pulled the boss and tested his weak aura with him until it was working. Right. So I'm definitely like, me, Hawk, the people are not afraid to like help you and do stuff like that. It's not like an inconvenience or anything like that. Like I'll go in there and, even after raid or before raid, I'll go into the boss and just pull it like, however many times you need to make sure your stuff is set up the way you need it to. Everything is displaying the way, oh, maybe I want to move my thing over here. Is it going to cover something that I might not know? Like, let's go pull the boss. I'll sit there and pull it and I can only last for like maybe a minute or two before I die, but like it's stuff like that we can just, work out some stuff on the side, then let's do it.
Yeah. And so, Funshine, does that pretty much answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the mechanics I wasn't able to learn, and I
Okay.
was able to learn through the polls.
Yes. So you're tactile learning.
So there was some aspects to it, like knowing that you don't always have that polarity swap. I didn't catch that in the video, where I did on some of those. So
Yeah.
But
So-
yeah, I
yep.
just want to know like the consistency of commitment you guys are wanting, not just knowing the boss, but also throughout
Yeah, I
the
would
week.
say
like,
I would
you know,
say
keeping your
ensuring
mythic
that you're
up.
getting your mythic 10s in your vault is a big part of that. Not everybody has time to do that, right?
Yeah, but sh-
The tens are more important at the beginning of the season. Like at this point, if you've been doing them all the whole time, you may not have anything you need left from it.
well, yeah,
there's
but
only
I
there's
think-
only 4 people in this roster that are at 684.
yeah, people are not.
That's not. Yeah, but sorry, that's not what I mean. Like it just because you're not 684 doesn't mean there's any upgrades for you left in Mythic Dungeons.
Pip, go ahead.
Go ahead, Pip.
I'm gonna be honest. I sort of disagree, Galatea, just because
Yeah.
a big part of it is that we just have not been having people who are doing them consistently, right? Like, I'm not even saying get 3K, right? I'm saying do your 10s. If you do your
No,
12s, you unlock the Mystic Trap.
I understand, and all I'm saying is, like I'm happy to take people through tens if they want, but like concretely, I'm at 680. I'm not at 684. But if I go to drop, there is nothing left for me in as a mythic vault slot unless I get a chest I can catalyze, not one other piece.
I think
Yeah.
that I think that there's something to be said, like so, and I don't know if everyone shares this opinion when it comes to like doing keys and stuff, but I believe just from seeing a little bit of both sides that if you do keys, like you will be a better raider,
Yeah.
and like the higher keys that you do, the easier raid mechanics become because like mythic keys at a higher level are just insanely more like they're faster, they're more difficult, everything's a one shot. Like, you know, so if not for gear, it's just a way to practice like reaction time. It's a way to practice like, you know, even if you have a group of people, like in that builds kind of the synergy that we were talking about before with people, especially if you're running them in the guild. Granted, it's a different environment, just like it is a different boss, right? But like it builds playing with those people, seeing how they react. Mechanics are, again, I think if you do keys, it'll only help your raid play. Like raiding
It does.
to me is like a way slower environment. Like so.
Yeah.
It.
That I absolutely agree with. I was just kind of like, just in the particular case, like this week I went and ran lower level keys to help other people get up instead of doing my tens because the tens didn't particularly have a chance of giving me upgrades.
I think it's
Yeah,
more, but to Koff's point, to Pip's point, I think it's not about just getting gear from the vault. It's about utilizing M plus as a proving ground, right? As a training ground for what is to come in those higher level bosses of the mythic raid.
And I think all of that's valid. I will just say one thing in response to all of that is that I'm raiding 5 nights a week, and so that's already a lot. I think I'm almost 50, and
I am 50.
and I have like my hands hurt at the end of a raid. Like I have to put Tiger Balm on them and shit. So. Like I can't raid 5 nights a week and do tens all week. That's just not happening. We're not doing that. So like I can either leave the Profits team and do tens on those nights.
Yeah.
To get,
And I said
I did
that.
I do a couple of 10s a week. I usually open one vault slot, sometimes two. Like last week I opened two, I didn't get shit. This week I only opened one and I got a chest piece. So I actually got an upgrade by doing less.
Yeah.
But there's no way that I'm going to run 8 10s and raid 5 nights a week. That's just not happening.
No, and that's fair. I haven't had you
Also,
our. Okay, hold on. I haven't had you in this roster since we made the switch, so you're not on the roster for profits at all. Pretty.
Okay. The other thing I'll say to that is that I think people were getting CE with like 670, so I don't know that being 685 or 677 or you know what I mean. Like I don't think
Those are.
I don't think 5 or 6 eye levels is going to make the difference between whether it makes or breaks us on Sprocket.
Yeah.
It's whether people can do the mechanic.
I don't think it's the item level. I think it's what Koff was saying, the mechanics and learning your class.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using a lot of the pugs and stuff that sit there. Like I've almost gotten where I'm hitting 2 mil as a tank in the keys, but now I'm at the point, since no reward, all I'm doing now is if people need me to come tank, I come tank, but I'm not going like killing myself getting 3 vault slots a week like I was before.
Right. You don't need to, Cano. You're one of the 4. That is at max level, right? So. And I understand the idea of like, I can't get anything out of the Mythic Plus dungeons. I get that, okay? But I think one of the things that is, like I said, one of the things that I think is important is being able to get through those higher keys, because they kind of do, make you be more aware and make you meet, like that kind of stuff.
I wasn't arguing for not doing them. I was arguing for it doesn't make sense to do 8 of them every week when you don't have anything to do. Like I did 3. I did
do 1.
Sure, different problem, and I agree that can be an issue.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you is, guys, is that to raid at that mythic level requires a certain level of commitment at that level, which means getting to highest. I mean, a lot of the guilds that go dormant, they're all 684 on most of their characters. I would consider anybody above 680 to be pretty decently geared, But I'm saying, I think that's what I'm talking about, is the level of commitment that is needed to be in a mythic team does kind of require you to get that item level up, to get the situational awareness up, to get your, all of that stuff, get all of that stuff. And the best way to do that is actually through Mythic Plus. I can vouch for that for myself. Doing the Mythic Plus dungeons has improved my situational awareness quite a bit. And, I didn't do that last season. So I think that there is something to be said about that in what Koff was stating in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, there's also other ways to do it. Like my stance on this whole thing has always been like, the gear right now, like my thing is the gear doesn't matter. We're 678. I obviously push as high as you can get there, right? The people like cleared Galley at 6. A harder boss fight at a lower eye level is when it was cleared. It's been nerfed. We got the 20% buff or whatever the hell is from the thing now. It's really just about playing
the game
better at the stage that we're at. And so if Mythic Plus isn't your thing, like I remember when I was at towards the beginning of the season when Demon Hunters, this is my first season Demon Hunting and also raid leading. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do both because I don't know how to play Demon Hunter in raid. And I was like, so I have to figure this shit out or else I'm going to be in a world of trouble. So I just went and did the heroic for practice on it and while parsing so that I could show that my numbers were at least better than what I had. But there's different ways to do it, right? Like the Mythic Plus is a good way to do it. I think it's a great way. I just enjoy doing those. But if doing the raid again in heroic, there's different ways to improve your gameplay. Because if you go do the raid in heroic, Whether it's a pug that goes through it quickly, go pug one boss. There's no lockout on it, right? Even if you're locked to loot, like heroic gear doesn't really matter to most of us. So go do the boss. Think about it in the terms of mythic. Like practice it where you would stand as well. Like if you want someone to go do that with you, like I'll fucking run a heroic raid. There's just other ways. There's a bunch of ways to do like this stuff, right? The thing that we just don't want people is raid logging and being dormant, and then that dominoes into the effect of the frustration of not killing bosses and stuff like that. We want to stay active in whatever capacity that fits for you, while also progressing in Mythic.
I agree with that, and also, I mean, to agree with Critty's point about doing Vexy, doing Cauldron, doing Rick Reverb. I think at this state, I think that I can consider Vexy to be the only boss that the Mythic team has on farm. And even that sometimes causes a wipe. What I would say, farm is if you can kill a boss within 3 pulls.
I mean,
right?
The Mythic team has killed Cauldron within 2 pulls in a night. It's just with the
Yeah, but would you really consider Cauldron to be on farm?
For a guild of our caliber, I would say if we can get the bosses down in 30 minutes, it's pretty much on farm.
Okay, good. So then that's your benchmark. So that is not the benchmark for Rick Reverb.
No, not for Rick, but like when we went and did Vexy and Cauldron at the end of the raid, it was like what, 45 minutes or maybe an hour.
Yeah.
I think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
and
that's at the end of a frustrating period of progging Sprocket. So
So to Critty's point is being able to end on a high note, I think helps our morale, and I tend to agree with him about maybe slipping in those other bosses on at the end of Thursday. Maybe you guys do Vexy at the end of Tuesday, and then you do, Cauldron or Rick at the end of Thursday, so that you have, your progression, but then you end on a kill that maybe upgrades something for someone. Yeah.
Well, and I think my main point was more of like, we had a lot of turnover as well, right?
That's
so it's
true.
It's not just that, we didn't have these bosses on farm. Like I think Vexy and Cauldron before we had all this turnover, were pretty much on, you could call them on farm. Like, Cauldron, but it good enough, right?
Yeah.
Rick, definitely not. But then we killed Rick, and then we turned over like half the team. And so I think that's part of where I'm at. I totally respect Pip's opinion that she doesn't want to just beat her head off things she's already done, and that she wants to be progressing. And I think there's probably a lot of people with that same sentiment. Like, I don't really want to do Mythic Vexy over and over again either, because it's a pretty boring fight. But like, I think there's something to be said for, can we find a balance where we can all kind of come together and agree and say, okay, we don't really want to farm the same 3 bosses all tier, but also we had a super high amount of turnover, and there are people that probably don't even have a Rick kill on the team yet, or people that maybe only have one.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, that also is, for folks like Santhar, for I don't know where Crassus is in this, but they may not have gotten all those drops from those bosses that they might need still.
And even not just the gear, but they may not have, again, like I said, you have to build a mythic
the synergy.
Team. You can't recruit it. And so some of those people may need that practice in Rick to get better at their class and what they're doing before they're ready for Sprocket, for instance. I came back to WoW, and last year, heroic Ansarek was hard. It was hard. My guild did 240 pulls and finally took it down. And I am a way better player now because of that. Because of
Agreed.
240 pulls on Ansarek. So do we really want to do 200 pulls on Rick? Well, no, but should we kill him like 5 or 6 times before we?
Right. And just so you guys know, I mean, the top 20 guilds, they'll have, I know that my friend's guild, he's in Pop-Tart, Corn Dog, like, I know that they had, like, 300 some pulls, something crazy. I know Incarnate had something crazy like that on Ansurek, so that's not like rare to be at like a 300 plus pull in a boss. It's not rare, you know, and I don't think that that's really, you know, like I don't think that we need to be worrying about how many pulls are on a boss. People don't really care about that. What they care about really is this right here. This is what they care about. Where are you now, and how far have you gotten? So, you know, again, I say, you know, one of the things that I want to impress upon for this meeting is TLP is still TLP. We are still people first kind of guild. We're still the same environment. We're still that. Just that this mythic team needs to kind of elevate a little more, get more serious, be prepared, be repaired, bring all your goodies, okay? You should always have those on you, because if we don't have enough mats for something for 1 week, you know, we're not going to provide things for you, okay? I just spent nearly, you know, 150,000 gold to get Pip the recipes she needs in order that she can provide some feast for everybody, okay? So I'm putting the efforts behind the scenes, but I need you guys to also be putting those efforts behind the scenes too. It can't just be on raid day. It has to be, you know, getting the strategies, seeing the videos, asking the questions, you know, getting your auras fixed, getting your add-ons together, getting your UI together. All that stuff should be done outside of raid time. And that's what I consider like being repaired and prepared.
You know, death rolls help to get that money too.
I just
I'm
robbed
gonna
Peter
send
mean-
him.
Paul.
I am really gonna send him to Gambling Anonymous. I swear.
I mean, like it's like it's not cheap. I've made 2 ocean cauldrons to help Cough out, and I literally, to get some of the stuff to guarantee their rank 3, I blew 40K of my own gold.
I think the most important thing, right, is to show up, though. I think that's the one thing that,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that we really lack is, like, we have every single week, there's a good handful of people that are not here. And I know real life happens, but, like, a Mythic Raid team is, like, you show up every week unless, like, you're in a hospital or your mom's dying kind of thing, I feel like.
Yeah. No, I mean that's very true. I also want to impress upon everybody in this guild that I fully intend for us to be an all-season guild. All right? If I can set this guild apart from most other guild, it's going to be having activity, you know, continuing to raid and continuing to progress and continuing to down bosses and re-clearing and all that kind of stuff throughout the whole season. I really want us to like commit to that, because, and I know how hard that can be towards the end of the season, but I really do need that to be the case. You know, for everybody that's raiding, everybody that's in M+, everybody that's doing PvP, there are a myriad of different activities in this game that you guys we should be active. I want that commitment as well. And that's for everybody, not just the Olympians, right? We have recruited folks here whose guilds have gone dormant for the end of the season, and, you know, then they end up staying with us because they like us. That happened last season. So there's that. Does anybody have any other comments? I know that kind of Critty has dominated a little bit of this, but does anybody have anything else? Because I really do want to give you an open space for it. And if you guys want to tap me on the shoulder or cough on the shoulder or Hakusan on the shoulder and be like, I just want to talk to you about it, that's fine too. Okay? But does anybody have any other input? Any other suggestions? Any other comments?
For now, my only concern is like knowing if I'm going to be raiding now that I'm on a bench spot.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was asking you earlier, and you said that like.
Yeah. Well, we did say a
Give an
minimum
hour
of an
before?
hour before raid is what folks are on the dock for letting us know if they're going to miss a raid night. And that is outside of planned multi-day vacations or time away, right? So like if you put yourself on the vacation tracker right here, and you're like, I'm I got a lot of stuff going on. Whatever the case may be, you put yourself on there. I'll make sure to kind of, keep an eye on that. Laura will make sure to keep an eye on that. Cough, I need you and Hakasan to look at this as well, the vacation tracker, so that you guys have an insight into that. So outside of multi-day vacations like this, we are requiring everybody to give us at least an hour of notice. That may be too little.
Yeah, I think on a bench spot, like I would appreciate more than an hour knowing if I'm going to be raiding that night, because there's things that I need to prepare for that night.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking like if I need to take time off. I'm asking, since I'm on a bench spot, how do you pose, hey, we need you to raid tonight? That's what my question was.
Okay. Fair. Fair. I right now I can only say like we will know like an hour before, so maybe the bench players that are available can kind of let themselves be available. What I can do, hold on, let me see if your guys are looking. What I can do and what I've done like for certain people is I like Nyletha, for example. I have left him on here, but he is going to have an unknown rank. So that means that basically we're not really counting on him unless he comes into Discord, right? And he changes and he changes his sign, his stuff. So if he comes in here, you'll see Nyletha, Tiz, and Viz. Both these people here, these two people, because there's two people, three characters, they are unknown. So they would have to come in here and set themselves as, hey, I am on standby. I'm going to be online. I'm going to be playing tonight. We could do something like that, Funshine.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I could put you on that where you physically would have to let us know that you are available that night.
No, I was just wondering what your system was. But thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Well, today, we have Salve is leaving in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, what do you do on stuff like that? Would you prefer we just say we won't be available that day? Because it is a static 20-man stack.
Yeah, that is, I mean, there's nothing we can do. I know Salve has had a very difficult work schedule as of late. He has told me that a few months back. Very little we can do. Very little we can do about Fel coming earlier than 8:30 or so. That was something that was prearranged with Fel as well. So like we have some wiggle room in that. To be fair, I think that that's not something that we have thought about. The actual just drop-offs. We haven't given that a whole lot of thought, but we should. Because if you drop early without an excuse, without notice, I think yeah.
Leth did something in guild chat too.
I guess on that point, my initial thought, and it's not saying that this is what we're doing, but my initial thought on it is if you can't make the full time, like just sign off for the day, because otherwise you're going to cut.
Difficult. Yeah.
You're going to cut everyone else's raid time who did commit to it short, right? So finding someone an hour and a half into raid is not really feasible.
I would agree.
So,
one of the things that I think it's important to establish is that the bench is not like you're going to be forgotten there. The bench sits mostly, you're going to have a core group that's going to progress to the boss, get the first 2 kills, and then the bench needs to be rotated in and out for gear experience. Like we can't you're not just going to sit there and wait, I don't know, for us to clear for the raid to clear everything. Right.
That is the idea of the bench. I mean, the first step is getting a bench.
Of course. But at this point, most of the guilds, when you start the bench, people are like, "Oh shit, when I'm gonna get gear?" ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another thing to worth pointing out is if you are on the bench, you should have all the weak ores installed and be all researched and up to date.
You should.
all the
Yeah.
time, just like the rest of the team, because like you might only get an hour notice, or you might get pulled in halfway through a raid, and you need to be ready to go when you get pulled in. So if you're on the bench, you should treat it as if you're a regular team member, and you should have everything ready to rock.
Yep.
The only thing I'll say there is like I wouldn't expect the bench players to, if you're on profits, I wouldn't expect that the bench players are waiting around on Mythic Day to be called, right? That's I think a little unfair. But if you're on, you
Agreed.
should be like ready to. If you're like already there, you should be like
Yeah.
ready to go, right?
Yeah,
We're
no,
not gonna
I
expect
don't.
people to.
I don't think you
yeah.
should be sitting around waiting at all. But I think
Yeah.
if you are on the bench, you should have the weak auras installed, and you should, if they're not, you should check to make sure they're working. Like
Yeah.
Koff and I'm more than happy to go in with you and help and heal so that we can test people's weak auras. But you should definitely treat it as if you could be in at any moment.
Yeah, the bench is mythic capable and mythic ready, right?
So
I
if
think-
Sunshine came today?
Funshine? Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Sunshine is coming today.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, because we're like a few minutes from kickoff here. We've gone over and
Invites.
Yes,
Do I
go ahead.
whisper? Sorry.
Please.
You whisper cough and X, and it should invite you.
I wanted to say that also we need to track gear because some players definitely don't need maybe the first 3 bosses. So then the bench. Yeah. Okay.
We do.
Yeah, we do in the WoW audit and how we distribute loot. It goes into the Droptimizer, and that's kind of how gear is distributed.
Mm-hmm.
So if people don't need it, then obviously that
This
kind of
thing-
plays a role.
Yeah, this thing gives us all the info. I can even see who's enchanted or not. Right. What the Greater Helm enchant you got, right? How many pieces you've obtained,
Is it
So-
possible for that to become accessible for all of us?
It should.
I
Is
wish.
it not?
I wish.
It isn't.
Yeah. I wish I could. I think that it would require me to give admin access to a bunch of people that I don't know that I should. If that makes any sense.
You're just afraid that the person, if somebody leaves and rage quits, they're gonna delete everything, huh?
Yeah, because we had that happen before.
Yep, when I first joined.
Yeah. So there's that. Okay. All right. So guys, just, I think everybody's doing a fantastic job. Otherwise, like I see a lot of M pluses going. A big shout out to Kuda. She is constantly using the M plus tag to tag people and get people into mythics with her. Pip, you're starting to do that as well. The M plus tag is definitely the way to go, guys, and I have a channel specifically for that. So if you want to put together some mythic plus teams, get in there and start tagging. Also, there is an @PvP tag. So if you guys wanted to PvP and you want to get into some of that, because, in the season or whatever, and maybe you're bored, use that tag, because that'll ding Jason, and I'd love for Jason to take you guys out and show you some stuff out there and kill some people, murderous tendencies over there. So use that. And, like I said, if there's anybody that has any issues about talking, in this big room of people, you can message me directly and I'll make the space for you guys to come and talk to me, more privately. Same with, Koff and Haksan. All right. Let's get going.